Thank you and welcome to another episode of the CLEO Edge podcast. Well, we're very excited because we are beginning our Women's History Month celebration. As you can see, I'm wearing all pink and commemorating this important time. We're going to be highlighting some of the most spectacular women attorneys across the country this month at CLEO and in our podcast. So we're very excited to have you here. And we continue to celebrate our 55th year anniversary. Some quick updates. Please visit our website at cleoinc.org. We have the Spring Bloom on May 17th. Thanks you to Gustin and Stores for sponsoring our event. And then the New York Yankees Classic on July 7th in the Bronx. Please check out our website for more information. But today we are very excited because I am joined by a superstar attorney, someone whose career I've watched blossom throughout the years. And when I asked CLEO alum Bernarda Villalona, can you help me score Sue Ann Robinson for the CLEO Edge podcast? She was successful. So thank you, Bernarda. And today on our program, we have Sue Ann Robinson, attorney extraordinaire, Amazon Prime superstar, and soldier in the courtroom. Sue Ann Robinson, thank you so much for joining us today at the CLEO Edge podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good work that CLEO does. And congratulations on your 55th anniversary. I'm very excited to kick off Women's History Month. So thank you for having me. And shout out to Bernarda.
Shout out to Bernarda. You are our very first guest. We know you're a trailblazer in so many ways. For a lot of us, I know that many of our participants watch you on TV. We watch you in action. But we want to have an opportunity, Sue Ann, to get an understanding of Sue Ann Robinson. I want to know more about you. I want to know what motivated you to pursue the law. And I just want to hit the ground running. I mean, we're two Caribbean kids, and I followed your exciting path through the law from Florida A&M to Florida International. And I want to get to hear from you. What motivated you to become an attorney?
I think my motivation, I always joke in interviews and I say it was Claire Huxtable, but it definitely had a lot to do with representation, seeing a Black female attorney that was a boss and a mom and was doing her family thing and still being very graceful and fly. So definitely Claire Huxtable. But as a first generation Caribbean person, I can tell you this, we didn't have that many options. It was like engineer, teacher, nurse, lawyer. You had like doctor. You had 5 choices of what you could do, being a first gen. So my parents said that, I could talk my way out of anything. So that's what I should focus on. And, once the Pythagorean theorem thing came up in school with the math, I was like, med school's out for sure. But, just to be less esoteric, I definitely later learned that, my parents being Caribbean immigrants and moving to South Florida, Miami specifically, they were the victims of redlining because they came here from another country and, with their cash to buy their home, to, start their life here. And they were specifically guided to a specific area and a specific neighborhood in called Brownsville in Miami, Florida. That, it continues to be, an underserved area and an underserved population. But my parents didn't know because we're from Barbados and 98% of the country is Black. So they're like, oh, we live in a Black neighborhood. There was no such thing as a Black neighborhood because everyone was Black. So they didn't have, it wasn't until living there, dealing with a lot of different issues that they realized, they said, oh, this is, a high crime area. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of socioeconomic issues happening in the area. And realizing that, they were not given the option to go to another area or a different neighborhood or with other schools or different schools. And realizing that actually shaped my parents' journey, being that that's the first place that they had a home when they moved to the United States. And that shaping their journey shaped my journey as well, because having to kind of witness certain types of things at a young age did motivate me to want to be a social engineer and someone who could fight the behind the scenes real, the deep story, but definitely Claire Huxtable in terms of having representation.
It's so interesting, Sue Ann. Claire Huxtable played an important role in my life. And if you follow me on social media, I'm always posting the character Claire Huxtable, but the Queen Felicia Rashad herself And she was just an inspiring figure. I'll
Mm-hmm.
never understand how she didn't get an Emmy for that role. Never,
You're right. You're
never.
absolutely right.
I had Claire and Matlock, so I got those were
Yes,
the only attorneys that I got to see.
that's what's up.
Growing up, Sue, did you know attorneys? Were you surrounded by attorneys? And knowing that you wanted to be an attorney so young, aside from Claire, what are the tangibles were there that were guiding you along the way?
I think the tangibles that were guiding me along the way were definitely discipline, paying attention to detail, standing up for others, kind of in my own way, ferreting out what wrong was and what right was and kind of what position I was going to take in that, but also understanding, myself in context, in saying, my parents are here, they're immigrants, that's kind of a legal status, that's a legal situation. Starting to understand the framework of just my day-to-day family life and realizing how much of it relied on the law, the more it kind of said, well, I want to pursue this as a career so I can understand everything that's happening around me.
That's so interesting. Often, us first generation students find ourselves reading contracts and reading leases and helping our parents read the Con Edison or energy bill. And in doing so, we're budding attorneys in our own way.
Right. Because you're advocating for people from the start. I mean, I was, fortunate in that both my parents got here, got to school and just did so much, but you do find yourself advocating from the start, just even for your culture and who you are at home versus who you are at school in terms of, I was born here, but my parents weren't. So it's kind of that dichotomy between things in the house and things outside the house, not being allowed to use slang at home, different things like that. All those things kind of shape you because you start to understand like what causes your parents to react to certain things certain ways and what it means, on a deeper level in terms of how socioeconomics affects, a lot of things.
So I see that your love for civil rights started really early on in your life. Mm-hmm. This is something that was a fire burning inside of you for so long. How was it for you as a budding attorney, knowing early on that you were going to go to law school? When you go to undergrad, how's that experience for you at Florida A&M? Talk to us about that firing in the belly.
Well, I definitely went to Florida A&M University. I'm a very proud Rattler. And I got to school and immediately told all of my professors, like, listen, guys, I know this is great, but I'm going to be a lawyer. And so I need you guys to show me how I can facilitate this undergrad thing as fast as possible so I can get to law school. But so I definitely was, I had a business card since I was in high school. Like I was like, I need to get to do this thing that I've always wanted to do. And I think it showed on campus. I did participate in student government. I was the president of the Caribbean Students Association, again, just the fire to advocate for others. Always burned and always took those opportunities to do that because I knew, as a social engineer, to be respected, to understand people, you had to be able to serve them, as a leader, because I was mirroring that for my parents as well, just always being the leaders in our household, but through service and serving us.
That's interesting. We have a lot of mentors here at CLEO with similar stories like ours. And many of them are members of the Divine Nine, and they're very, very helpful to our students across the country. I was just at a podcast recently with some of the brothers from Omega Psi Phi. I know you're a proud member of the Divine Nine.
I am a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated, and mentors are absolutely key. Representation is important because it gives you the vision, but then you need a mentor to really give you that momentum, somebody to actually show you the steps to get to that vision. And that's kind of what I see mentors as. I think the mentors are the people who actually put the concrete steps in place for you to get to whatever your vision is. So there's such an important part of, if your goal and your dream is to be a lawyer, you need a mentor that's going to say, okay, you got to finish high school. You got to get an undergrad. You should get this type of undergraduate degree, and you have to get these types of grades, and you have to work on your LSAT. I was very fortunate at the time that I was in undergrad. I became very good friends with a woman who was taking her MCAT. She ended up going to Harvard. She became a dentist. But she was studying for MCAT and I was studying for LSAT, and we were both going to Kaplan together. So sometimes your mentors don't have to necessarily be people, above you. Your mentors can also be your peers. And I think we don't talk about that enough often. Sometimes your mentors are right around you.
That is such an interesting perspective, right? Mentorship within your own peers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that a lot of us, I know in the law, when we practice, we see our peers as mentors often.
Absolutely.
I see exactly what you mean. I hope that a lot of our participants are listening to this, because, I often tell my students, I teach at the Bormanhattan Community College here, and I do the introductions with my students, and I often tell them, you never know. I said, the next employer, the next big shot may be right next to you. You may want to make sure that you know each other so you can start building that network. And the network is something that a lot of our folks are missing. I'm glad you mentioned that. But mentorship has been important to you for a long time. You were very involved with CLEO. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was very involved with CLEO, Kids and the Power of Work. And the way that I was raised was, to whom much is given, much is required, right? So I definitely, when I had the opportunity in my career to give back to my community, to give back to kids, to inspire other kids, to give other kids that vision, I definitely went straight to the classroom. And what I liked about CLEO specifically is that it kind of their programming was bridging the gap between the hard skills that you need in the work environment and the soft skills that you're also learning at school, like socials and interaction and conflict resolution, and how you tie those things together. And we'll have to tie those things together to be successful in the workplace and whatever career they chose. So it was a great curriculum. I had a great time. I met some amazing kids. They sent me to some schools that they would say, oh, these are really, quote, bad schools. These kids have been through a lot. I spent a lot of time with middle school kids that were at a middle school that was actually closed down, because in Florida, if your school is rated an F school, they close the school. So the kids were just going through a lot of kind of emotional struggle, emotional strife, because they were wearing the fact that the school got an F and closed down as something attributed to themselves, as opposed to socioeconomic factors, the school board, the actual teachers and the administration of the school. They were internalizing the failure as their own. And so I liked working with them, because it gave me an opportunity to explain exactly what I just said. Like, no, you don't have to internalize that a school closed down. That's not you. You are a budding flower in a garden. You still have a great opportunity to grow and keep going. There's factors beyond your control that are affecting that. And even being able to throw in some law in terms of what the legislature requires for a school to fail and all that stuff.
Yeah. What's interesting is that you're in a tough environment. You're currently in Florida, and in Southern Florida, right? So, you're talking about some controversial stuff, trying to create an environment where you can demonstrate how systemic racism has impacted some communities. And right now, it's a pretty tough thing to do in Florida right now. Do you find that to be more difficult for you daily, or are you working around it?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it anyway type of girl, with stuff like that. I think social justice and educating students on social justice, civil rights, intersectionality, all that stuff is the most important work of our time. Because if we don't educate them on those things, or permit them to be able to have the discussions and the discourse and the rigorous intellectual discussion about those things, we can't ever stop it.
Right.
Because it's not acknowledged and discussed. And so, like I said, I'm going to do it anyway type of girl. So whenever I have the opportunity, whether it's on social media or whether I'm with students, I'm going to address those things. Now, obviously I live in Florida, but And we have a governor that's not too fond of the truth. And so, there's a lot of limitations there's a lot of Black women books that have been banned. Prison industrial complex studies have been banned. Advanced African American history has been banned. So, there's some dark days ahead. But again, I don't mind putting my shoulder to the plow to kind of push those issues and push the envelope on that and say, no, I don't think that, students having access to advanced level African studies is something that's African American studies is bad for them, because Black American history, African American history, Caribbean American history, it's American history. So we should all have access to that information.
Swain, you're so right. And just the conversation has to be had. Let's have a conversation. Don't stop the conversation, because it's through this interaction that we get to learn, and we get to learn from each other. And I've always had an issue with stopping a conversation from happening.
Right. Or teaching people to be scared to have a conversation. Right. Yeah.
And that's not even political. That's just from an educator's perspective, from an attorney perspective. Why not have a conversation and try to get to an understanding? So I'm so happy that you're doing it, and you do it daily. We see you in action. This is what's great about having you as our guest, our first guest on Women's History Month, because we see you in action on television. We see you battling. We see you on your feet, and I want to just get an idea from you. What do you see in the horizon as it pertains to your work as an attorney? And to civil rights specifically, because we see you a lot battling for freedoms of people that have been wrongly incarcerated. We see you fighting for civil rights. We see you discussing criminal defense issues regularly. And we know that you have a very diverse background, having worked as a state attorney and in private practice as well. So in your experience, what do you see on the horizon that you want to let us be ready for?
I think what's on the horizon is our profession breaking away from kind of the cookie cutter kind of model of, even in education, but also in how lawyers, and I hope I contribute to this in some way, in how we're supposed to speak, how we're supposed to act, how people are supposed to view us. I want attorneys to be seen as social engineers, as community leaders, as people who are on the front lines of change and making things better and working towards progress. I see for this next generation of attorneys so much opportunity with technology and all of those things, to use technology to think outside the box and come up with solutions to legal problems that we have now. I'm always talking about in press conferences, particularly with police brutality cases, about how if the modern day policing was a product, it would have already been pulled off the shelves long ago as one of the most dangerous products, for the public to ever have to be exposed to. But still it goes on. And I do that work, and I do those cases, and I take the cases, and I take the phone calls at 2:00 in the morning, at 3:00 in the morning. And, the civil rights practice is the least profitable arm of the firm. But I do it because I want to be able to one day say, I'm not taking any phone calls on that stuff, because it's done. It's been resolved. Modern day policing has been recalled, and it's changed, and people aren't dying at the hands of police every single day. Their officers aren't mistaking tasers for guns and killing people. Officers aren't killing unarmed people. I work every day and wake up every day with in mind that one day I'm not going to have to deal with those cases anymore, and I'm going to have to figure something else out that I can do with myself, because it's to me, and I always say it's the most important work of our time, but the work is really to make that work go away.
Swan, do you see things improving between community and police relations since the George Floyd murder?
No.
Interesting. No. I do see more and more people aware of that. I definitely see more and more. But I always wanted to get from a civil rights attorney, someone on the ground, do you see any improvement?
No, I think for a time, the awareness was causing people to, well, just in nuts and bolts kind of way, for cases to settle, because now we had a value, a very high value on someone's life that was taken pursuant to excessive force and police brutality. So there was a time where if a case was pending or a case came up, it was easy to resolve. You didn't have to fight and litigate the value of the person's life because it was on the screens. Everybody was in the streets. We were saying, listen, this is the value of the life, and this is how systemic racism is causing these issues. But I think, we've gone kind of back down to pre-George Floyd levels of interaction in civil rights. In Florida, again, you were talking about Florida. I mean, the officers, there's precedent for police officers to use stand your ground during an arrest. So that's a mess. So that's why I say no, and I can say it easily and quickly, but I'm still gonna, and Ben and all of us, we're still gonna work these cases. We're still gonna try these cases because that discourse, the litigation is what greases the wheels of progress.
I see that. I know that a lot of our viewers and listeners know of Ben Crump, who you work with as well. He's one of my heroes because he's at the forefront of this. I consider you and attorney Ben Crump to be the next generation of civil rights leaders. As a kid in the Bronx, I often read many books on the civil rights movement. Can't tell you how many times I watched Eyes on the Prize. And we saw the civil rights leaders of the civil rights movement era as we know it in history. But that fight continues. And it's folks like you and attorney Ben Crump who are working daily to make sure that we don't go back and that we go forward. So I know that a lot of our listeners would like to thank you, and I want to thank you a little later in our program. But because you have mentioned what you're doing daily, it's so exciting to hear that you're there, and that you want to keep democracy in check, that you want to make sure we have our civil rights. And it's always interesting for me because I know that your background, you come to us having tried thousands of cases as a state attorney and coming after felony charges, and at the same time have the wherewithal to know when the Constitution has to be kept in check and when the right thing has to happen. And how do you balance that, your experience as a former state attorney and now being one of the most prominent civil rights figures in our country?
Well, I respect everything that you're saying, and it's my honor to practice in this profession, to be honest with you, because but for the grace of God. Being a prosecutor was my choice because at the time I was obsessively studying the criminal justice system, and I said, where is the justice? And just very in a student esoteric kind of way. And I said, well, where can I put myself in order to be the most effective? What can I do? And I realized there's not a lot of Black female prosecutors, but there's a lot of Black female and male defendants in the courtroom. And the person in the courtroom, before the jury comes in, one of the most important people in the courtroom is the prosecutor, because they're the ones that has the discretion to charge the case. They're the ones who has the discretion to decide what the charges are going to be. And so I said, you know what? I could be a public defender, which I absolutely adore public defenders and all the hard, grueling God's work that they do. But I said, you know what? I think if I'm a public defender, my client or this person is already in triage. They already have the charges. They're already having to defend themselves. But as a prosecutor, as a Black female prosecutor, as a Black female prosecutor that's first generation Caribbean American, I can look at my files and look at my cases. It's more than files and more than cases. I can read their names. I can look at their and give context to whatever the facts are in order to apply my discretion. And so I did that. It wasn't a popular way to be a prosecutor, but I always was guided by the law, first and foremost, victims' rights and the truth. And I think that being on that side lended itself to me being a better defense attorney because I know and understand what the prosecution is facing, what tools they have in their tool bag, and kind of what their thought process is and can be in certain situations. So I think that was definitely the best training ground for me to be a defense attorney. But also later on, when I would be invited by Attorney Ben Crump to participate in his national practice for civil rights, that's why they got me, because they said we need a former prosecutor, because a lot of police brutality cases start in a police interaction. And so my job for the first 2-3 years was always to analyze the initial interaction, the initial stop, or the initial incident that led to death or the beating of someone by police.
So interesting. Suen, I want to pick up on that very important point you were making on the diversity in the courtroom right after what is my favorite part of the program, which is the rapid fire section. Now, Suen, these are just a few questions. I want just to get short answers. You tell me what's your favorite social media platform? Tell me, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. What is it?
Oh, Instagram.
Oh,
that's the one I know how to use the best.
Me too, but there's a whole other world of folks that really know how to use Instagram. I gotta learn. I gotta ask, Android or iPhone?
iPhone. I was a late transfer over to the iPhone gang, because I felt like it was robbery that once you had an iPhone, you had to get all this other stuff. But now it is like the most convenient thing ever.
All right, I'll continue to stay Team Droid. I want to know, what is Suen Robinson's favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite movie is Boomerang.
Boomerang, interesting. Now, Wrong Man on Amazon Prime is not considered a movie. That's a documentary. And for those of you who know, I'm a fan of Wrong Man, and I would encourage all of you to watch it. And not only because Suen Robinson stars in the program. So that's
it's a docu-series. You know, people are going to think that I'm an actress. It was a docu-series. I was a lawyer in the show.
I know you were, for full disclosure. I gotta ask you, which is your favorite sports team? Now, I gotta break it down. Give me your NFL and then Major League Baseball.
Dang. Okay, well, I feel like the Yankees have the most name recognition. So I'm going to have to go with Yankees. But to be completely honest, I'm a cricket girl, because that's what my dad watches.
Okay, and what about your favorite NFL team?
Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, wow. You're going Northeast all the way.
Yeah. I mean, listen, my mom used to take me to Dolphins training camp as a kid, and I would just be like, okay, fine, I'm here. But we all knew the Dolphins didn't understand the assignment, even back in the 80s.
Fair enough. You know, I asked this next question, and our producer, Colonel Burton, would laugh. I asked her, what's your favorite restaurant? And I started naming restaurants, and it turned out she was vegan. So I was like 0 for 4. So please give me a nod. You're not vegan, are you?
I like a steak, okay? I like a steak.
Okay. Woo. Favorite restaurant?
Okay, favorite restaurant. Dang, this is a hard one. I like so many restaurants. This is a super hard
Now it's going to be tough for me to client that are restaurant tours. What about steakhouse? What's your favorite steakhouse?
I guess I have to say Ruth Chris, because at least it's consistent. But there is a kosher steakhouse in Manhattan, in New York City, that I really like. I can't think of the name right now, but it's in Soho, actually. I'm gonna look it up.
I'm from the tough part of the Bronx. If I'm being honest, I would have to find the restaurant that has the latest oxtail, and I'm sure you and I could agree on that one.
Listen, I was gonna put you on to. It's in Atlanta. It's called Rocksteady. Okay. It is the fusion of kind of like African cuisine and Haitian cuisine.
Wow. So the oxtail must be phenomenal. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with oxtail, right now it's probably the most expensive meat, and you could probably invest.
It's the filet mignon.
You can tell we're Caribbean. So I got to tell you. So thank you so much for playing our rapid questions. I hope you have fun with it. I know that our students are like Really? Polanco uses droid. Yes, it's true. I love the droid. So thank you so much and for participating with us. I want to continue that interesting point you were making on diversity in the courtroom.
Mhm.
Why is diversity so important in the courtroom? Why is diversity important in the law?
I think diversity is important to the law because it affects the law, and the structure of it affects everyone. And I can remember, sitting in my law school classroom as a Black female law student. I was not 21 yet. I was still 20. And sitting in constitutional law and listening to the teacher talk about Brown versus Board of Education, and actually reading the arguments and actually reading the opinion and being like, wow, this is kind of mean. This is kind of scandalous on us Black people, the method to get to the end. But I didn't have anybody to really talk to about it because my constitutional law professor was, an older white guy. I just didn't feel like he was going to vibe with me on how I was feeling about that. And so later on, I had the opportunity in law school to have Black professors and women professors and more diverse professors that I felt like, okay, I can kind of go to you with, my concerns or my ideas or what I think I could do to kind of solve this legal issue or legal problem in the future. And it helps because I think representation is so important, but being able to relate, have someone in that's diverse for you to relate to is so important too. Because not only can you see yourself doing it, once you're there, once you're the law student, you can be like, okay, this person can kind of identify with me because they like the Yankees, so they might be able to kind of explain to me this tax law thing. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna bond over that. And I think it's missing for us because we think of networking and we get so heebie-jeebie about it. Like, ooh, I don't want to just know people for a business reason. So I never use the term networking. I always use the term kind of trying to find commonalities and similarities with people. And, if you actually do that, then you actually enjoy the person and you want to help them or they want to help you. So I think it's important, especially for minority students to understand that and know that, it's not like, here's my card, here's my number. You have to try and build a relationship with the person.
It's actually priceless. A lot of my students will often say, hey, it's who you know. And they're totally mistaken. It's who knows you. You can know a lot of people. But if nobody knows you, you're going to be out of luck. So that's so important, the relationship building aspect of networking. Mm-hmm. One of the things we do at CLEO is we try to fill that void. Students that come from places where they've never met attorneys outside of Claire and Matlock, like you and I growing up, and to be in a place where folks that come from your neighborhood, folks that come from your economic background, that come from your community, that also want to be attorneys can get together and learn from professors on how to think like a lawyer, write like a lawyer, read like a lawyer, which is a very tough thing to do, and it needs a lot of work. So we have this nationally renowned program called the Pre-Law Summer Institute, and the last 55 years has been phenomenal. But this year we're going to go live for the first time since the pandemic to Minnesota at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. We're packed right now. So if you want to apply, if you're a student that wants to apply for that summer program, visit cleoinc.org and apply for the PLSI program. We're approaching maximum capacity, and you get to dorm at the law school and be with fellow future law students, and it's just an incredible experience. One of the folks that we interviewed here, as I mentioned earlier, was General Ron Sullivan of the Army. He not only participated in CLEO Summer, he's now the Chief Criminal Court Justice for the U.S. Army, and
that's amazing.
He met his wife at PLSI. So not only
I love that
we could be a love connection.
It's a one-stop shop.
So it's so interesting. I tell folks, because of what you just mentioned, it's so important. It's getting that. Let's express what diversity, because right now, Swan, there are a lot of folks that don't understand diversity and are attacking it, not realizing how important it is for our everyday life. So I think you made a great argument as to the importance of how it helps in relationship building.
Absolutely.
That's great. I want to really thank you for joining us. I have another question before we break up. I know that you've shared about your time in law school. I know that you were working closely, and I think you founded the Caribbean Student Bar Association. Is that right?
I did. Where did you get this
I'm a
information?
fan. I'm a fan. So you've been living, you've been doing the work, you've been living this, and I just am so impressed with that. I want you to I want you to offer some advice for our participants.
Mhm.
Some words of wisdom coming from you to keep them motivated and to keep them focused on the prize.
Absolutely. I think the breakthrough in my career as an attorney happened for me once I embraced my authenticity and I realized that everything that put me where I am, my parents, where I grew up, my culture, my identity, foods I like, foods I don't like, people I don't like, all those things put together make me and are going to make me the best lawyer in my lane. I gave up the idea of trying to be the brown version of a white attorney or the female version of some other male attorney, and just really embraced my life experiences and what they bring to my decision making for myself, obviously, and also for clients. And so I think if you can embrace yourself and who you are and be authentic in that and stand in that comfortably, it will be a game changer for you in law school and in your career.
Thank you so much, Sue-Ann. Thank you so much for joining us on the CLEO Edge podcast. Where can people follow you? Where can they go and see what you're working on?
We can hang out on all socials at Not Just a Lawyer. And if you feel like having a little extra fun, you can check me out nowadays. I have a YouTube channel. It's at Sue-Ann Robinson, but at Not Just a Lawyer on all socials. And believe me, students send me DMs and emails all the time, and I'm happy to offer my assistance where I can. So please feel free.
I can't thank you enough for joining us on the CLEO Edge podcast, Sue-Ann. Thank you so much for joining us on this very first day of Women's History Month. So excited that you participated on the CLEO Edge podcast. And I'll be catching up with you on Instagram shortly.
Thank you. My honor. Bye, everybody.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on the CLEO Edge podcast. Again, we want to thank Attorney Sue-Ann Robinson for being our first guest of the Women's History Month program here at CLEO Inc. Please visit our website at cleoinc.org. We have some great events coming up. The first ever Spring Bloom will be hosted by Golston and Stores in Washington, D.C. And on July 7th, we have the first annual New York Yankees CLEO Classic. We encourage you to visit our site, purchase your tickets, support CLEO, sponsor our students, and donate today. Every dollar counts. Thank you for listening and watching us at home. Have a great day.